Hello, welcome back to Drippy Drez's podcast. Today I'm here with two guest speakers. Their names are
J Rock Porter 017.
and
Crescent Moon 420.
can you say that louder?
Crescent Moon 420.
See, this is exactly why I'm doing this audio, because men have problems expressing their feelings. It's been like that for a while. It should have ended like 30 years ago, but it's still going on and we need to do something about it. In my last audio, I talked about what you guys can do to stop feeding into toxic masculinity, but today, and of course by you guys I mean like women and children, but today we're going to talk about how men can speak up about their mental health problems. Take it away.
So, one of the first points that we have on here would be not feeling comfortable as a guy. And that, in my idea, is like, well, me personally, I would relate that to someone's gender or sexuality, and not exactly correlating to the standards that relate to it. That's just my opinion. Would anybody else have any other ideas relating to that?
I feel like part of the reason that that's an issue for people is due to the fact that people are so used to what gender roles are and not used to breaking those molds. Like a lot of people still believe in women are supposed to cook and men are supposed to provide, but it can be the other way around as long as you have a stable home.
And I think the main reason that this goes on is because people get so caught up in liking things that they forget why they like them. For example, the reason that parents like classic 80s movies is supposed to be because they learned from them. But instead, they like looking at it as a source of entertainment and they think that it's cool to base their lives off of them, when in reality, it's not, because there's a lot of guys nowadays who are suffering from toxic masculinity / who don't feel comfortable being a guy, and not remembering the why of certain things is a big part of it.
Yes, I agree with that. Another point we have on here, taking stuff as logical and seeing them as emotional. Now, Drez, would you like to explain that one?
Yes, because one thing that people don't realize is that logic is a correct way of thinking, and logic is supposed to be based strictly off facts and details. Like, for example, this is paper. That's logical. That's it. The fact that this is paper is logical. You might feel a certain way about this piece of paper, but the fact that it's paper is not emotional. It's logical. So you might be happier paying attention to certain details. You might be sadder, but the things that you're paying attention to aren't emotional. Those things are logical. And for the longest time, we believed that it was possible to think logically without getting emotionally attached to things. And then for some reason, we lost that. And that only made toxic masculinity worse.
I guess if I were to put my thought or input into this, I would say, I would agree with all of that. But yeah, emotion tends to, I think emotion was assimilated into it. And there was a specific image where the things that were supposed to be logical were supposed to be, or that people now see them as them supposed to be viewed as emotional. And like they put that image in our heads now, and we have to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And now it's kind of getting hopeless and fixing the thoughts of like mental health with that. So that's where we messed up, in my opinion.
Yeah. Could you explain that a little better?
I can try. Let's see. I don't think I can, actually. It's a bit hard.
I feel like you're trying to say that as a child, men and women have different roles that they were taught by their parents. I feel like it's because that's what they were taught, and it's a generational cycle that has to be broken. I feel like as a man, you're taught to not cry. You're taught to, when you get a bruise or a cut, to walk it off, or to hold emotions or feelings down, because it's considered not manly to be emotional or sad or wanting to cry. It's more manly to be tough, to not let anything get to you or bother you so people don't walk all over you. And on the woman's perspective, they are taught to be more emotional, to be more self-aware, to be more sensitive than what men are supposed to be.
Now, when you say self-awareness, do you think having a lack of self-awareness is what caused men to start taking stuff that was logical and seeing it as emotional?
Yes, because men kind of by default, because of how they are taught by their family members, is what logical is, especially by other men. They are taught that logic triumphs all. If you don't have logic for certain things, then you won't be able to push yourself further in life. Versus emotional, where you can see the logic, but you can also see the emotional side of that thing. But us men can't see that because we have blinders on and we're just seeing like this, like side to side. But once we take those blinders of logic, we can see the whole view.
Okay, so what you're saying is the reason that they start seeing stuff that's logical as emotional is because they're afraid somebody else is going to think of it as emotional?
Not yes and no. I not necessarily like thinking that it's emotional, more like once the emotions are down and other guys that are not used to seeing a man that is emotional will come around and be like, you're not a real man, you're not a real man that is supposed to be like us, like tough and strong. They just see pretty much another female, really. To be bluntly, that's what they see. They don't see.
Which I also think relates to the concept of pure masculinity or toughness. And the image of, oh, you have to be tough, you have to be this image. You can't express emotion or it's considered weak. And that's a problem that causes men's mental health to deplete about it, because said social standards that were done a certain way this way back then have become so prominent, and it's wrongly prominent. I don't think it's right for pure masculinity to exist in a way, or unwilling, like forced pure masculinity at least.
Yeah.
Or just like have to think that you have to live by that idealism of that concept and not express like a normal human being would.
Yeah, and it's also becoming the opposite a little bit when it comes to that. I would have to say that more men are getting emotional and expressing their feelings and emotions. But now it's not necessarily the men that are coming after other men. It's more so the women coming after men. Because they're used to men being tough. But yet some women, not all, but some women want their men to be tough, and some women want their man to be emotional. And it's a mixed signal for men that are emotional or men that are wanting to break that cycle of being tough. So they're like, how am I supposed to be tough but also emotional to my partner's needs without making her upset with how I am? Because it's okay to be emotional, it's okay to be who you are. And I feel like that's missing in today's society.
Similarly relating, that brings us to the concept, another thing that could cause these problems, toxic relationships and attachment issues.
Well, Sorry, I don't mean to disagree with my guest speaker, but don't toxic relationships stem from toxic masculinity?
And explain that. What do you mean?
Well, because think about it. Like, I shouldn't say the only, because women can be toxic too. But the main reason that relationships become toxic is because men, like, they want to care about their wives, they want to care about their children, but they don't want to get emotionally attached to them in a certain, or I guess I shouldn't say that. Like, they don't want to be vulnerable around them, and they want to treat them like shit.
I get what you're saying. That's also another generational cycle, because if a man has been in a abusive household, let's say the dad's very abusive, beats them, the cycle continues because they don't know how to manage their anger. Or vice versa, let's say the woman in the family is very angry and abusive and emotional. That can also trigger that for a man, even a woman too, because they don't know how to channel their anger in the proper ways or to step away. I feel like a lot of people were never taught how to manage their anger, and that's why there's a lot of anger management classes out there. Even then, there are just people out there that just don't know because their parents never taught them how to deal with their emotions. And that's a big problem, especially with men. And when it comes to the topic about toxic relationships, I would say, for me personally, it's a 50-50 split. Because I've been personally in a toxic relationship, physically and verbally. And I didn't hit or do anything to her. She was the one that was doing mainly the hitting and the verbal abuse as well. So I feel like it can go both ways, depending on which household that person particularly grew up in. I don't think it's just one-sided men, toxic men. I know there are toxic men, but there are also toxic women.
Mm-hmm.
And there is toxic femininity as
Mm-hmm.
well. So it is not just one-sided. It's really down the middle at this point.
That's true, because even nice guys are sometimes afraid to leave their toxic partners because they're afraid of appearing as more superior or dominant, when in reality they deserve to be happy in their relationships just as much as women do.
Right. And I'd say, as for the attachment issues, I personally relate to that. And I'd say that that can also take a toll on the mental health, because you get attached to someone so quick just for it not to work out, and it just like, you don't, well, there's things that could have caused the getting attached too easily, but the fact that it doesn't work out really messes with your mind. But it's also the problem that you rush things too quickly in the first place, and it causes the perception of like relationships in the future to be ruined. Like, what if I get too attached? What if I get too personal to express everything? What if I become the problem? And you start to like think about it too much, and it really starts to affect you as a person. So that's what I would say on that part of it.
Well, and I think the reason that men sometimes rush things is because they're raised to focus on looking happy rather than being happy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's like how you present yourself as a man is supposed to be so picture perfect, or fit into the categorization that we've put ourselves into. I'd say we've doomed ourselves into, in a way.
Yeah, and I feel like now that men are trying to break that cycle, not all women, but certain women like latch on to the old ways of thinking, and it's a shocker for them to see actual men not being toxic or trying to dominate there are some men, including myself, that try to share that role. Like, it's not about who's dominant or who's more submissive. It's about a partnership. It's about two becoming one, really. And that's what relationship and marriage is two becoming one. To work with each other like a partnership, not a dictatorship or anything like that. I feel like a lot of people miss that part because they're so easily trying to be better than the other one or trying to be the dominant one when in reality you should just work together, communicate, talk to one another. Because if you can't communicate, there is no relationship in that foundation in the first place.
I think in a way, this can tie into, it might be a reach, sexual expectations and hypersexuality. Because you take that in terms of like the dominant, submissive stuff, that relates to it, and I don't think it's good. I would personally speak more about the hypersexuality. That also may ruin the perception of female for some guys, and ruin the relationship experience. It could be 0 to none. Like the idea of the concept of a relation due to hypersexuality, because you can't view a person as a normal, or a female or whatever as a normal person, and it ruins the mental health, because you're always thinking, well, why can't I be normal and just see her for who she is, rather than what she can do for me behind closed doors and stuff like that.
And I feel like a lot of that has to do with movies too.
Yeah.
Movies over sexualize females, and now as well over sexualize men.
Yeah.
And that perspective of this is what a man should look like, or this is what a woman should look like, is really not necessarily purifying, but adding more toxicness into our society. And it's not really helping the matters which is an already sensitive topic between men and women, with toxic masculinity and toxic femininity. Like having feminine toxicness from females. So a lot of men automatically, and it's hard because even myself, we automatically assume that, like, oh, I want to talk to this girl that I really like, but what if I go up there and say the wrong thing? And then they're afraid that, well, maybe, and it's not wrong to be a feminist, that's fine.
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing, it's just how you use it. And guys get scared because if they say the wrong thing or look at her the wrong way, they could be accused of who knows what.
Well, to be honest, I'm actually a firm believer that if somebody isn't a sexual predator, then they shouldn't present themselves as one. Like, if you know that something could come across a certain way, then you shouldn't say it. And I don't think that men should sexually harass women simply because they tell men that they're supposed to be toxic. But I also don't think that women should tell men that they're supposed to be toxic, because even if they do rise above it, even if they do listen, like, what is she, other than hurting him, like, what is she even accomplishing? Like, does she really not think that there's better ways that she can live her life than saying and thinking things like that? And I think men need to start saying that stuff. Like, really? Like, why do you say that? Why do you think that? Like, is that really how you want to live your life? Telling people that they should treat you like shit?
Yeah. And it's a sad reality that we live in as well, where women accept the toxic men that treat them like crap versus the actual genuine men that are trying to treat her right and give her the life that she deserves.
I'm glad you said that.
And it's really sad to me when I see it. I've seen it before. Another thing that's really sad to me that I've seen certain women do So when a guy does gain the confidence to ask them, their girlfriends that are around like joke or talk behind their back, which makes their confidence falter. And it's really sad to see. I mean, if you're not interested in that man that's trying to talk to you, it's okay to say no. And for the men, if she says no, no means no. Walk
And
away.
you don't have to lose your confidence shouldn't depend on a girl, which is why you shouldn't lose your confidence just because a girl you like says no. And I think that we tend to think that women are the ones who are affected by romance movies, and that's true. But men are as well, because sometimes men think that it's okay for them to let their happiness depend on falling in love and being with a girl, when that's not how that should work. You should be able to have hopes and dreams and have your own life right up until you meet the one.
Personally, I would say I relate to what one of you guys have said. I believe it was okay. I'd say I've been turned down by a female for being too nice. And yeah, I think it does relate to like people want the no offense, but good for nothing men that really don't have anything going on for their lives, but they find there's a guy that really wants the best for them, really wants to be perfect or good for them, and they're just like, "Yo, he's not my type." And the fact that I think a guy really ruins their mental health by wanting the best for them and saying, "Okay, maybe I'm just not their type. I want them to be happy." And I think it ruins that for them. Mm-hmm. I'd also say that I also had like talked like my experience talking with a girl, and like I get talked about my friend group, not my friend group, some people that I thought were friends that they just start talking about it, or so her friends talking about it in a negative way when I built up all the courage to talk about it, and I say one wrong thing because I'm learning from it, and it certainly turns into, why would you do that? You messed up. You didn't say the right thing, and it's just like my mental health depletes, and I just don't know.
And that's the thing. There is no right way. I'm sorry, and I know this is gonna be very sensitive towards some females out there, and even some males. But there is no right way to ask someone out. There is no right way to have the right words to ask someone out or to talk to a person that you like. The only way that you can truly be yourself is by being yourself. The only way to talk to someone that you truly like is by being yourself. Right. But if you think otherwise, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, but if that's the case, then you should only crush on people that are going to like the way you ask them out.
Yep.
Because
with everything comes boundaries and respect.
Yep.
Well, yeah, and then there's also people that, they're not gonna like it. So it's just pretty much that's trial and error to that extent, I believe.
But bottom line, be yourself.
Yeah.
And love being yourself. And know that it's okay to be yourself. Because if you can't be yourself, you'll lose yourself in the end trying to impress people. And you don't need to impress other people.
You'll lose the authentic you for an artificial you.
Yep.
And yeah.
I'd rather have the real me and the real person that I'm supposed to be with versus someone that's artificial. It's bad enough that we live in an artificial world with cell phones, drones, even robots getting made. So if you want the artificial, I'm sorry, marry a robot. I mean, at this point.
Yeah.
Well, I think we covered not having a way to let out pent-up problems.
Pretty well.
Or is there anything you guys want to add?
Well, I guess I like to put a lot of personal views out there, and I know you may not experience the same, but I put them out there in case there's someone that really sees it how, like in specific scenarios, just to like get an example or get the point across that it actually does happen in real life. I'd say in terms of not having a way to let up pent up problems, there's like that expectation that since you're supposed to be a certain way, or since you're supposed to represent the idea of pure masculinity, I put air quotes up in the sky, then there's no outlet, there's no way. People expect there not to be a way to let it out because you will get talked about or frowned upon or whatever in not letting them out. And there's not exactly an outlet, because I know I've seen online, I don't think I personally experienced it, well actually I have, of people when men express their emotions, they call them dramatic or say you're just being a drama queen. It's not about you being selfish and stuff. When in reality, we have emotions, we have feelings too. We should be heard out as well. And to not have that, I think it's one-sided, unfair, and it's just false expectations in my opinion. And I just don't stand for it. I don't like it.
Well, that ties into our next point, which is the term typical boy. A lot of people, they still like saying stuff like, oh, you know, he's a typical boy, or yeah, that's a boy thing. It's like, okay, that's cute, but we seriously need to move past that. Like, we need to start letting our boys be boys and our girls be girls. Like, I can understand, like, not wanting your boy to maybe, like, sit a certain way or move a certain way because it lines up with stuff in movies that maybe, because it's associated with that, boys shouldn't move a certain way or sit a certain way. But, like, other than that, like, boys should be able to say or do whatever they want as long as it's respectful, and not be considered gay or masculine. They really should have just as much of a right to choose their personality as females do.
And as a musician, I could also say, listening, they also do the same with like limiting what music you listen to. Like for example, not being able to listen to Beyonce because it's too feminine or whatever. Or with certain female artists, or not being able to listen to female artists in general. When I just think that people should be able to like express or listen to or do whatever they want. Like if you wanna listen to, let's see, Liana Flores, Rises the Moon, you don't have to feel afraid like, oh, she's a female artist, I should listen to. No, listen to whatever your heart or soul desires. That's, I feel like you should have that bit of expression, and taking away that expression dehumanizes you in a way.
Yep.
Yeah.
And were you gonna say something, Crescent Moon 420?
No, I guess, yeah, I listen to pretty much everything myself. I listen to female artists, like you said, Beyonce. I also listen to Rihanna. I listen to SZA. I don't know if you know SZA, but I listen to SZA as well.
Mm-hmm.
I really like SZA, actually. She has good music and very beautiful voice. I listen to every artist that's out there. I'm not limited to what artists I should be listening to because, you know, being man, you know, it doesn't matter.
Right. Music
really
is
doesn't.
music.
Music is music, yeah.
Well, this ties right into parental issues. A lot of the times, parents say things because, like, they're trying to cover up for other parents rather than focus on how they raise their children. And that needs to end because when you're a parent, you shouldn't be worried about how other parents are raising their kids. You should be taking care of you. And if that means you're living in a small town and a child molester is going to get spotted, that's actually a good thing. And I know a lot of you guys are afraid to let that happen because of the original Pinocchio movie. You have to remember that movie goes to show you shouldn't need some sort of logical explanation as to whether or not someone's a pedophile. You should just be able to tell if someone's a pedophile, which means it doesn't matter if that parent has said or done other toxic things or not. And it doesn't matter if those toxic things are what led you to realize that they were a pedophile. That person should get caught and they should go to jail or prison. If you want to associate certain qualities with pedophilia, that's fine. You don't need to make parenting decisions on them because that just ruins things for everybody else. And what parents need to realize is that it's not heartwarming to bring children into this world and then not raise them right. It really isn't. It's only heartwarming if you're going to raise them right.
I will say something with the opposite income but the same outcome. You had said, like parents looking at, like, what did you say? You said, like, how other parents do things when they should focus on how them parenting is, like, how they parent.
Yeah.
I would say some parents focus way too much on how they do it. And, like, you have kids that are like, but people, like, other parents do it, like, they have it so much better. But they're like, this is my way, this is my house, this is how I present it. And I think that puts trauma and fear inside of a child, and that could definitely lead to it, like having like mental health issues and all these social issues and how to organize your own life because of stuff that you grew up with or stuff that you were raised with, whether it's right or wrong, and that can really alter things for worse most of the time.
Yeah. I feel like what I just said applies more to people who live in like smaller areas, and what you said probably applies to people who live in more medium areas.
Somewhat. I wouldn't say like the classification of where they stay. Cause I know, well, personally I could say it happens in like a lot of not suburban but like I'm gonna say like this. I notice it a lot in like a lot of African American communities as being one of those that it's just like, well, people from like the other classes and stuff, people are more fortunate have it. I'm not saying all African Americans are not fortunate. That's not what I'm saying. From my personal experience specifically, I've noticed that it's like we look from a perspective of an African American, we are like, but other people have it so much better, and we're forced to look at the perspective that our parents put in front of us. Now, don't get me wrong, they try to make it good for us, but there are some parents that just don't. They throw it away, and they don't treat us right.
That's true.
So, now on to how to speak up about it, because we've talked about so much about the problems, and I think it's important to identify, at least be conscious of, hey, so this is the problem, but people don't really know how to speak up about it. So, this is, maybe, hopefully this can help.
Yeah, so the best way to start would be to realize that anytime anyone does anything, it's always for a reason or reasons. And I know that a lot of you have trouble believing it because you think that at the end of a parody movie, a cat and a donkey were singing Livin' La Vida Loca just to sing it, when they were obviously celebrating the death of the fairy godmother. But anyways, people do stuff for a reason or reasons. And if you can tackle the reason for why someone is feeding into toxic masculinity or just simply being toxic themselves, that's it. You can stand up to them. Do you guys have anything to add on to that? Or do you want me to explain it?
I would say if when those type of situations come up to deal with, what we were talking about, if it's toxic relationships or trying to ask a girl or a guy out for that matter too, um, address it really right then and there, because your respect, your psyche deserves to be heard. You can't just ignore it. And I feel like especially a lot of men, ignore it because they don't want to push anything further because they're afraid that they're going to look dumb, women are not going to like them anymore, things like that. So it's okay to be like, hey, I didn't like what you said to me. That was very hurtful. Explain yourself, you know?
I'd like to say that since everything happens for a reason, sometimes it's not going to be that easy to figure out what the reason is. And although it is important to figure it out, sometimes it just goes over your head, or you like to second guess it, or even just think, oh, it's not that bad. In this first step, it'd be important to expect the unexpected and not second guess and be like, this is why. Don't say maybe, or no, not don't. That's not what I'm trying to say. Don't say it can't be this. Don't. Any option is an option. Just as long as you pinpoint what it could possibly be and know what is wrong with it, you have the first step done and you're on the right track of figuring out what the reason is or dealing with the reason. Now, the second thing you could do, another thing, talking with a group of people that can relate with it. It could be pretty much anyone you trust. It could be another group of guys, a really close family member, I wouldn't say that one coworker, but maybe someone that you really trust and just was willing to listen to you without judgment, maybe feedback, but just not openly judging to make it feel worse. So that's what I would have to say with it.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, Crescent Moon, are you gonna keep fidgeting with your hands or are you gonna talk?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is a lot.
I understand. Aren't you the one who mentioned therapy?
Yeah, it's good to talk to a therapist about different things that are going on within your life to better you and to better the other people around you. I go to one. I talk to mine. It's good to just be open with those thoughts and those feelings that you have. Because the more that you do that, the more that you are open to other people's feelings and you can relate to those people instead of judging them. For me personally, I've been opening up more. I wouldn't be here actually because of just how I was raised and how I felt about myself back then. But the more that I go to therapy, the more that I talk and open up, the more I can see others.
I will say this next point's not on the list. It's something I think of from a perspective of someone has a friend who has mental health issues. Give them time to open up about it. If you notice that they're in I'm not gonna say it's in mental danger. If you notice that they are distraught or distressed with it, don't. Yes, it's important to help, but don't be hey, don't be so persistent in helping. Mention it, offer it, give it space, return back. I wouldn't necessarily, something along the lines of, are you going to talk or am I just here for no reason? Be okay, I understand you're going through this. I will give you space. I will check on you though, because I care. Something along the lines of that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
The point that I suggested, besides realizing that everyone does something for a reason or reasons, is wearing t-shirts with quotes on them. Because, I mean, come on, whenever somebody wears a t-shirt with a quote, who doesn't read the quote? I mean, really, who doesn't? And I think that going around wearing t-shirts with quotes that promote healthy masculinity would be a great way to, well, promote healthy masculinity.
Let's also say general advertisements for it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Could do that. Some people just like a web advertisement. Reach out to that one very smart friend with computer science that can do that for you. But just as long as you get the message out there, I think it'll work out. And the last point that I put on there. Finding other outputs to let the problems out. Or export the thoughts or feelings. And examples that I would use are music, poetry, art, outlets like music, poetry, art, podcasts like this one. Because you never know, like, you can express yourself differently and it can really get the message out that would be more comfortable just saying, hey, I'm hurt from this. And with the fear of people not listening, whether it's music, bring it to a music, they can promote it. Art, you can post it and convey the message. Poetry, everything that in the fine arts category that really gets it out there. Or anything else for that matter that just gets it out without being direct about it, if that's not comfortable for you, I'd say.
Well, just to make sure you guys know, the only reason that Porter had to repeat himself twice was because the microphone cut out. He is very confident about his point, so please don't mistake the mistake on my end for his mistake. Listen to what he's saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything. Thank you guys so much for listening. Remember to follow
JRockPorto17. That's my Discord. My Instagram is Jerome_DA_shorty. And my Snapchat is its_JRockman with 2 N's. And that's it. You can also find me at Jerome Porter for music.
Just follow me on Discord at CrescentMoon420. You can also follow me on Snapchat under Gothic Sushi.
I like that username.
Alright, well, you guys all know where to follow me, so thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for hitting that like and subscribe button. Thank you for leaving comments in the comment section below. I cannot wait to read and hear about what you guys have to say about this audio, and I will talk to you all next week, Friday.